I watched my father's business partner forge his signature on a document that would steal everything we owned, and he had no idea I was standing right behind him. That moment, that single, perfect moment, taught me something valuable. The best revenge isn't loud or violent or dramatic. It's patient. It's calculated. And it happens in boardrooms, not back alleys. Let me tell you how I destroyed the man who tried to destroy my family, using nothing but his own greed and a college degree he thought made me harmless. My name is Alex Morrison, and this story starts the day my father had a stroke. I was 26, working in Boston as a junior architect, living my own life, when I got the call from my mom. Dad had collapsed at his office in Chicago. Massive stroke. They didn't know if he'd make it. I was on a plane within 2 hours. He survived, but barely. The stroke left him paralyzed on his right side, unable to speak more than a few words at a time. The doctors said maybe he'd recover some function with therapy. Maybe. But the sharp, brilliant man who'd built a commercial real estate empire from nothing? He was gone. And I watched my mother age 10 years in the hospital waiting room, trying to figure out how we'd manage. That's when Marcus Vega showed up. Dad's business partner of 15 years. The man my father had trusted with everything. Marcus walked into that hospital room with flowers and sympathy and promises that everything would be fine. "Don't worry about the business," he told my mother, holding her hand. "I'll take care of everything until Robert recovers." That's what partners do. My mother cried with relief. She'd never understood the business. Dad had handled all of that. "Marcus was a godsend," she said. "A true friend." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe him. But something about the way Marcus looked at my father in that hospital bed made my skin crawl. It wasn't sympathy. It was calculation. I stayed in Chicago, took a leave of absence from my firm, moved back into my childhood home in Winnetka to help my mom take care of Dad. And I started paying attention to Marcus Vega. The first week, everything seemed normal. Marcus ran the company, made decisions, kept things moving. He visited Dad twice, brought reports for him to review even though Dad could barely hold a pen. "Just keeping you in the loop, partner," Marcus would say cheerfully. Dad would grunt, frustrated by his inability to respond. Marcus would pat his shoulder and leave. The second week, Marcus stopped visiting. "Too busy," he said. The company needed him. Big deals in the works. He'd update us by phone. My mother didn't question it. She was drowning in medical bills and therapy schedules and the million small tragedies of watching someone you love struggle to remember how to swallow. But I questioned it. Because I'd spent 4 years studying architecture and another 2 years working with developers and contractors, and I knew enough about commercial real estate to know when something smelled wrong. So I started digging. Dad's home office was exactly as he'd left it, files everywhere. Notes scribbled on legal pads, his laptop password protected, but not encrypted. I knew his password. It was my mother's birthday combined with mine. Predictable, but sweet. I logged in. What I found made my blood run cold. Emails between Marcus and investors I'd never heard of. Contracts for properties that weren't in the company portfolio. Bank transfers to offshore accounts. And a document dated 2 days after Dad's stroke, a revised partnership agreement that gave Marcus full control of the company and reduced my father's stake from 50% to 15%. The signature on the document was my father's. Except it wasn't. I'd seen my father's signature my entire life. I'd watched him sign my report cards, my college applications, the deed to this house. I knew his handwriting better than my own. This signature was close, but wrong. The R was too tall. The M in Morrison had a loop that Dad never made. Marcus had forged it. While my father was lying in a hospital bed, fighting to stay alive, his partner of 15 years had forged his signature and stolen his company. I sat in that office for 3 hours, staring at the document, feeling rage build inside me like nothing I'd ever experienced. I wanted to call the police, report him for fraud, have him arrested. But something stopped me. Because I realized that if I moved too fast, Marcus would cover his tracks. He had lawyers, resources, connections. He'd probably been planning this for months, maybe longer. He'd have contingencies. So instead, I made a different choice. I decided to beat him at his own game. First, I needed allies. I called my father's lawyer, an old-school attorney named Richard Chun who'd worked with Dad since the beginning. I showed him the forged document. Richard's face went gray. "This is fraud," he said. "Criminal fraud. We can prosecute. Can we win?" I asked. Richard hesitated. "Marcus has a good lawyer. He'll claim your father signed it before the stroke, that the signature looks different because Robert was already experiencing symptoms. He'll say you're a grieving daughter, looking for someone to blame. It could take years to prove. And in the meantime, Marcus controls everything." "Yes." "Then we don't prosecute," I said. "Not yet. We play smarter." Richard looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Marcus doesn't know I found this. He thinks I'm just the daughter who came home to help Mom. He thinks I'm harmless. We keep it that way. And while he's feeling safe, we build a real case. Not just the forgery, everything. Every illegal deal, every falsified document, every dollar he's stolen. We bury him so completely that no lawyer in the world can save him." Richard smiled slowly. "Your father would be proud of you." "My father can't speak anymore," I said. "So I'll speak for him." The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. I had to pretend everything was normal. I had to smile at Marcus when he called with updates. I had to listen to him tell my mother how well the company was doing, what a strong quarter we were having, how proud Dad would be. All lies. The company was hemorrhaging money because Marcus was funneling it into his private accounts. But while he was lying, I was working. Richard connected me with a forensic accountant who specialized in corporate fraud. Her name was Lisa Park, and she was brilliant. Together, we traced every transaction Marcus had made in the past 2 years. Every suspicious deal. Every offshore account. Every shell company. We found a pattern. Marcus had been stealing from my father long before the stroke. The stroke just gave him an opportunity to take everything at once. We also found something else. Marcus wasn't working alone. His brother, Daniel Vega, ran a construction company that had done most of the building work for Dad's properties. Except they'd been overcharging by 30% on every job, and Marcus had been approving the inflated invoices. They'd stolen almost $4 million together. I documented everything, built spreadsheets, created timelines, gathered evidence that even the best defense attorney couldn't explain away. And then I started phase 2, setting the trap. I reached out to Marcus, asked if I could come work at the company. "I want to learn the business," I told him. Dad always wanted me to join him eventually. Now that he can't, I want to help, honor his legacy. Marcus loved this idea. He practically glowed with fake enthusiasm. "Alex, that's wonderful. Your father would be so happy. Of course you can join us. We'll start you in project management. Learn from the ground up." What Marcus didn't realize was that project management gave me access to everything. Contracts, invoices, client lists, communication with vendors. Everything I needed to build the final piece of my case. I worked there for 2 months, played the eager student, asked Marcus for advice, laughed at his jokes, brought him coffee. And the whole time, I was copying files, recording conversations, building an ironclad case against him. The breakthrough came when I found the next phase of his plan. Marcus was preparing to sell the company. He'd found a buyer, a development firm in New York, who'd offered $60 million. The sale was scheduled for 6 weeks out. After the sale went through, Marcus would take his share, which was now 85% thanks to the forged document, and disappear. My family would get 15% of $60 million, $9 million. It sounded like a lot, until you realized the company was actually worth twice that, and that my father had built it over 30 years, and that Marcus was stealing $75 million from a man who couldn't even speak to defend himself. I went to Richard. "We move now," I said, "before the sale goes through." "How?" "We call a board meeting. Force Marcus to present his financials in front of the other stakeholders. And then we destroy him publicly." Richard looked nervous. "That's aggressive. If we miss anything..." "We won't miss anything. I have everything. Trust me." The board meeting was scheduled for a Tuesday morning at the company's downtown Chicago office. Marcus thought it was a routine quarterly review. He showed up in a $1,000 suit, confident and smiling. The board consisted of 5 people: Marcus, myself, representing my father's interests, Richard, and 2 minority investors who'd been with Dad since the early days. Marcus started his presentation. Revenue numbers, profit margins, projected growth. Everything looked great on the surface. The investors nodded along, impressed. Marcus was relaxed, in his element. This was his show. Then I stood up. "Marcus, I have some questions about these numbers." He smiled indulgently. "Of course, Alex. Fire away." I pulled out my laptop. "According to your report, we paid Vega Construction $4.2 million last year for the River North project. But I've reviewed the actual construction costs. Industry standard for a project that size is $2.8 million. Can you explain the discrepancy?" Marcus's smile didn't slip, but something shifted in his eyes. Construction costs vary. Materials, labor, unexpected issues. It's all standard. Is it standard to pay 30% above market rate to a company owned by your brother? The room went quiet. The investors sat up straighter. "That's a serious accusation," Marcus said slowly. "It's a serious crime," I replied. "And it's not the only one." I spent the next hour laying it all out. Every falsified invoice. Every offshore transfer. Every shell company. The forged partnership agreement. I had 3 handwriting experts ready to testify. The planned sale of the company at below market value. The systematic theft of $75 million from a man who trusted him. Marcus tried to defend himself. Denied everything. Called me emotional, vindictive, a daughter who couldn't accept her father's decline. But the evidence was overwhelming. The investors saw it. Richard saw it. Even Marcus's lawyer, who'd come prepared to discuss the sale, saw it. By the end of the meeting, Marcus was finished. The investors voted to remove him from the company immediately. Richard filed criminal charges that afternoon. The DA's office, armed with Lisa's forensic accounting and my documentation, arrested Marcus and his brother the next day. The trial took 8 months. Marcus fought hard, but he never had a chance. The evidence was too clear, too thorough. He was convicted on 14 counts of fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. Sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. His brother got 8 years. Every dollar they stole was returned to the company, our company. My father never fully recovered from the stroke. He regained some mobility, some speech, but he wasn't the same man. But on the day of Marcus's sentencing, I sat with him in the living room and told him everything. How I'd found the forgery. How I'd built the case. How I destroyed the man who'd betrayed him. Dad looked at me for a long time. Then, slowly, fighting against his damaged brain, he managed 3 words. "Proud of you." I cried then. Not because of Marcus. Not because of the money or the victory or the justice. But because my father, the man who taught me to stand up for myself, to fight for what was right, to never let anyone make me feel small, could still tell me he was proud. And that was worth more than any revenge. Today, I run Morrison Properties. The company's worth $120 million. My mother volunteers at a stroke recovery center, helping other families navigate what we went through. My father spends his days in therapy, slowly rebuilding himself. And Marcus Vega sits in a federal prison in Indiana, probably still convinced he was smarter than everyone else, probably still believing he would have gotten away with it if not for the daughter he never took seriously. But here's what I learned from all of this. Revenge doesn't have to be violent to be devastating. The best revenge is simply refusing to be the victim someone expected you to be. Marcus thought he could steal from my family because we were vulnerable, distracted, weak. He thought I was just a girl playing architect, too naive to understand business, too emotional to fight back. He underestimated me completely. And that underestimation cost him everything, his freedom, his fortune, his future. I didn't destroy Marcus Vega with anger or violence or some elaborate scheme. I destroyed him with patience, evidence, and the simple fact that I was smarter than he ever gave me credit for. He took everything from us and thought he'd won. But in the end, I took it all back, plus 12 years of his life, and the only weapon I needed was the truth. That's the thing about people like Marcus. They're so convinced they're the smartest person in the room that they never see the trap closing until it's too late. And by then you're already standing in the courtroom, watching them get sentenced, and realizing that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's winning so completely that your enemy has nothing left but regret. Marcus taught me to be ruthless. And then I used that lesson to bury him. I should probably feel guilty about that. But standing here today, running the company my father built, taking care of my family, knowing that justice was served, I don't feel guilty at all. I feel free. And that's better than any revenge could ever be. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell us in the comments. Have you ever had to fight back against someone who underestimated you? What's the most calculated comeback you've ever witnessed? Drop your stories below. I read every single one. And if you want more tales of patience, justice, and people who refuse to stay down when life knocked them over, hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, we're just getting started.